Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Hello, once again, my beauties and bees. Thank you for joining me this evening for another installment of Sci Fails. Today, we are going back to our roots because this show originally started as a response to young Earth creationist claims and kind of gone all over the place to flat Earth and electric universe to just bad biology videos in general. And today, we're getting right back to our roots, though, because we're going to be looking at young Earth creationists, ICR specifically, Institute for Creation Research. And they did a video. They do have a dinosaur video that we can cover at some point. Let me see if I can find it. It's like a. They hyped it up and stuff. I started watching it. I was gonna cover it, but it was freaking boring. It's right here. Uncovering the truth about dinosaurs 1. It doesn't. It's just dinosaur basics. There's nothing creationist about it. It just talks about the different species of dinosaurs and stuff. They are really into dinosaurs. They also have a lot of these just videos about life and things like that. And I'm sure there's a lot to unpack here. But for today, where was that? I'm trying to find. Yeah, they have a lot of these like just 4K videos of big cats and stuff that are really good. I really like them. They should do that instead of creationism. But that's not for me to decide. And obviously, that doesn't do as good. Like, look at this: 857 views, 216K views for eugenics and the death-driven worldview. Eugenics, evolution, and yeah. Maybe we do need to dig into that. It's awful long, though. It's 50 minutes, so that's why I didn't pick that one. Instead, I picked this one about bees. The industrious efficiency of bees. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do some bees for our sci fails. Let's see what this guy has to say. And I got this like going like 2 times as fast as it needs to be. So when I do my research for this stuff, I watch everything on two. It's so I'm used to hearing the world in fast forward. I'm like have to slow my brain down to talk with people normally.
The brain of a bee, and they've dissected it out, is about the size of a grass seed. Wow. Now, a grass seed is just a little bit of nothing, and so that translates to about only 1 million neurons. Now, 1 million neurons is not very much. So how is it that bees can recognize human faces, have this unprecedented cognitive flexibility, improve upon what they're learning with a brain that only has 1 million neurons? Nothing is left to chance when that bee brain was put together, and it wasn't put together by time and chance and natural processes.
All right off the bat, I just want to say I got citations here, right? I know about bee brains. I got lots of visual aids for us too as we go through this topic, but this isn't an unresearched area of science, right? We have plenty of research on how bee brains work and how they evolved. No, that's not what I wanted. It's going to the wrong. To go through. Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, so this is what the bee's brain looks like. Optic lobes, these are the eyes. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Creation Podcast, the show where we discuss the science that confirms Scripture. I'm your host, Trey, and our guest today is Dr. Frank Sherwin, ICR research scientist and zoologist. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We're glad to have you. So, Frank, bees are fascinating insects. Of course, we often just think of the fact that they sting, but they also provide us with honey, and they have a role as pollinators. It's a really broad topic, and there's no way we can cover everything in just the short.
Most bees do not sting, and most bees do not make us honey. Only one species of bees, or if you want to be charitable, like maybe a handful of species of bees, if you want to, that do actually make honey. The only ones that have honey production that's any kind of impact on or industry, as the title of the video indicates, that would be the European honeybee, Apis mellifera.
short amount of time that we have with you. But I'd love it if you could tell me what you know about these creatures. How many types of bees are there?
So when we classify in biology, we go class, order, family, genus, and species. So at last count, and these are numbers that are just approximate, there's about 4,000 genera of bees. Now that means about 20 to 25,000 species of bees. And worldwide, we have about 7 families of bees. So there's a lot of bees out there. All
Is the families, is that the level of your kind? I hope they tell us. Do you think we're going to find out what a kind is, at least when it comes to insects? Because insects are when it comes to creationism and talking about the different kinds on the ark and stuff like that, insects are where I always I'm almost like, And then they'll have their reasons for insects not being on the ark are weird too. Like, oh yeah, they survived on floating vegetation mats. And you gotta understand the environment that they're saying that these insects survived in. There wouldn't have been. I mean, we'd have it would have been driving rain, erupting springs. I mean, it bukkakied the moon. So, but some butterflies are going to survive that. Sure, Haas.
all different kinds, and all designed to do what they do very, very efficiently.
Wow, that is a lot of bees. That's incredible. These bees don't all serve the same purpose, right? What are some of the more common kinds, and what do they do?
Well, when people think of bees,
So,
they always think of
We just heard right there that there are different kinds of bees. So bees are divided into kinds. So there's not just the bee kind. So that's really interesting because I wonder how many kinds of wasps there are. Because bees are wasps. They're a clade of wasp, herbivorous, highly eusocial wasp, but wasp nonetheless. Just like ants are wasp too. How many kinds of ants are there? I wonder. How many ants were on the ark? How many kinds of ants survived the flood?
the honeybee as being the most common, and not surprisingly, the honeybee is the most common kind of bee.
Good.
Now, the genus species name, the title in science, we call it Apis mellifera. Apis means bee, and then mellifera, the melle means honey, and the fera means to carry. So this is a very descriptive phrase or a title for the typical honeybee in a scientific language format, Apis mellifera. And so we also have the European dark bee, and we have, of course, the popular bumblebee as well. So those are just three.
There's way more than that, though, and bumblebees are my favorite bees. Look how freaking cute they are, though. Holy crap, how can you not love bumblebees? They're just little guys, right? Little guys like, hey, I'm just here to get some flower stuff. I hope I'm not bothering you. And then they go do their flower stuff, and they buzz off. And they're so cute and fuzzy, and just leave them alone. But people spray, like, when you think about, like, you know, Roundup kills weeds and everything else. Roundup kills bees, and bees, you spray Roundup, it can kill bees, a bee hive 3 miles away. One bee lands in your flowers, and there's Roundup, and it gets Roundup on it, and it carries that back to that beehive, killed an entire hive of bees. And bumblebees, especially, they don't live in huge, like hundreds of members. They have, you know, their membership's in the dozens, and they live underground. They don't make honey, but they do pollinate. I mean, I shouldn't say they don't make honey. They don't make any honey that we can eat. Or that we've harvested.
Of the many kinds of bees that are out there.
Okay. What about some of the rarer bees? Can you share with us some of those kinds of bees that maybe our viewers or listeners may not have heard about?
Oh, well, there's plenty of bees out there that nobody has heard about, because with 20 to 25,000 species, you'd spend the rest of your life trying to determine those different kinds of bees. But probably one of the most rare bees out there is what we call Franklin's honeybee. Now, Franklin's honeybee is extremely rare. It's found here in the continental United States, but it's only found in a small portion of southern Oregon and north.
I will raise your Oregon bee and show you. This is for my girl Sumami, because this is her neighbor, one of the rarest bees ever. The blue Clementia bee, the brilliant rare pollinator of Central Florida. These ones, yeah, this is telling us. Just as the sky is blue, bees are black and yellow, right? Not necessarily. Scientists recently discovered a rare blue bee that has been feared extinct. So they thought this was extinct, but they've rediscovered it alive in 2016. It lives in this really unique habitat in Central Florida. Hold on, let me show ya. It's like this, it's called the Lake Wales Ridge. And it's full of sand dunes. Or sometimes called the Florida Scrubland. Give me just a second here. I'm just pulling it up. So I want you all to see what it looks like. We discovered at Lake Wales Ridge. Lake Wales Ridge is this like kind of scrubby, badland looking area. Come on. Trying to find a good picture of it. It shows you on a map where it runs. But it runs right up the middle of Florida. And if you look at it, you'd think that you were looking at a desert in like the Southwest, right? Like there's yucca plants, lots of scrub grasses and brush, scrubby little trees. So you would think that, you know, you were in the desert Southwest, not Florida. But the white sand can be a dead giveaway because this all used to be underwater fairly recently. But this is where these bees live, and they burrow in this specific kind of habitat, and they live this specific kind of life, and they're really rare. They're like the bees they're talking about here. So that's one place where I think me and ICR can get on the same page. We can get on the same page to say we need to protect these bees from extinction. I won't read any more about this. We'll maybe do a special section on blue bees at some point. But for right now, let's get back to this guy.
They're in California. Now, that was back in 2016, so the chances are that this particular species of bee is probably no longer around.
That's
really?
super
Okay,
sad.
wow. Fascinating and kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It is.
Could you explain maybe what would have happened to cause this particular species to not be around anymore?
Well, there's a number of facets and problems with bees. For example, there's a mite, a very small arthropod that can get into a beehive and cause problems, or individual bees themselves, because a lot of bees are individuals. Majority of bees do not live in a hive. And so this particular mite can cause problems. There are also pesticides out there. Pesticides are all-encompassing when it comes to arthropods, for example, the insects. And so they kill the bad insects.
He's talking about CCD, which is colony collapse disorder, which has a lot of factors that come into play. So colony collapse. Stop with the pop-ups. Colony collapse disorder is a phenomenon that occurs when the majority of worker bees in a colony disappear and leave behind a queen, plenty of food, and a few nurse bees to care for the remaining immature bees and the queen. Once thought to pose a major long-term threat to bees, reported cases of CCD have declined substantially over the last 5 years, which is great. So yeah, and this was published in like 2015. So colony collapse disorder is a big deal. But there's a lot of it's multifaceted, and yeah, the parasites come into play, pesticides come into play. Monoculture is the real enemy, though.
As well as a good insects like the bees. And so there's a number of facets. Could be weather patterns. It could be a number of things.
Okay, well, thanks for the explanation. Still a little sad, but now we know a little bit more.
Yeah.
All right, so you did say that not all bees live in hives. They don't all live in colonies, but most of them are individual. But let's talk about bee colonies. How do those operate?
Well, bee colonies are
Okay, I'm talking about bees right now, and you guys are talking about apes in the side chat. So let me just say, humans are apes. Even, my little babies are apes. Little baby humans are apes. Little baby apes are cute. So I don't know why you think that's an insult. Children are apes. Yep. Elderly people are apes. We're all apes. There's nothing about us that says we're not apes. Everything about a human is ape-like. Is an ape characteristic. There's nothing non-ape about a human. All right, back to the bees.
Wonder of God's living creation. They are just absolutely incredible how they are able to work and produce the 100 to maybe 300 pounds of honey every year. Wow. Now, that's in your typical bee colony and people who raise bees, the beekeepers. Now, a typical colony has about 60 to 70,000 bees. And God has designed the bee colony to have 3 castes or 3 parts to it. Now, the first one, of course, is the queen bee. Now, the queen bee is really amazing.
Oh, kudzu. Yeah, kudzu's Love you guys. I have a lot of choring to do. I'll be on mute. Okay, John. Much love from the Hive. You can go ahead and take care of your business. So do you think pee is a okay. I'm getting lots of bees from my sunflowers this year. That's great, AR. I love that you're getting some bumblebees. Like the bees are going to all die, and the kudzu is going to cover the trees, and we're all going to go extinct. Kudzu can choke out a big, huge acreage of land, but I think we've gotten it more under control here in the last couple of decades than it has been in the past. Someone just has to actually manage it when it comes to kudzu. That's the problem. Someone actually has to get out there and manage it, but it can't be managed. It has to be actively managed and controlled. Some of us are still apes. We're all still apes, not just some of us. We are all great apes. All of us are great apes. Every single one of us.
She is brought up from the pupal stage to be fed a special...
So arthropods and invertebrates, invertebrates and vertebrates. You're talking about the split between deuterostomes and proterostomes took place, I think, far back as the Ediacaran. So you're talking more than 600 million years ago, maybe even close to 1 billion years ago when we split off, when our ancestors split off, because arthropods are protostomes, they're in protostomia. We can tell this because of the way they develop when they gestate, right? When they're in their little eggs and we watch them develop. The way they develop, we know they're protostomes. That's because they start with 2 holes on either end. They start with a mouth and an anus. Whereas we're deuterostomes, deuterostomia. All tetrapods are, all fish are, all vertebrates are, reptiles, birds, mammals. We start off just with 1 hole. Deuterostomia, you just have the 1 hole. It's the anus. So you can tell the difference because bees start off with a mouth and an ass, and we just start off as an ass. So, I mean, technically not correct, but hysterical nonetheless. However, that's how far back we diverged that apes and bees diverge. So we've had a lot of time apart from each other, and we've had a lot of convergence too when it comes to bees and their societies. Social wasps in general, especially ants. Like when you talk about ants, comparing them to modern humans, like their society, they innovated like farming 30 million years ago, or even longer ago than that. They like right after the dinosaurs went extinct, ants started farming. They developed livestock husbandry. They started using aphids like cattle that they milk and herd and control. They started farming fungus crops underground. Tens of millions of years before humans ever a thing, before apes were ever a thing. So they have food for thought about thinking we're when was agriculture invented? When someone asks you when agriculture was invented, you tell them, HiveScience told you it was invented during the Paleocene by insects.
Nutritious kind of honey called royal jelly. Now, this royal jelly is honey, but it's packed with nutrients such as amino acids and special kinds of fats and all. So this pupal stage of the queen bee grows and grows until she's a little bit larger than the worker bees or the drone bees. And then she is chosen to produce the eggs that will later become the pupa. And she just becomes an egg-laying individual. Well, that's the queen. But also, there's the worker bees. The worker bees are the females, and they do, like it says, all the work. They build the nest. They go out there and they forage for the honey and the pollen. They do all the work that needs to be done. There's even air conditioning bees that stand at the entrance of the hive and beat their wings to cause a circulation of air so that the wax doesn't melt.
Wow.
It's really quite amazing. They'll just stand there and beat their wings and cause the air to circulate. So that
ants do stuff like that too. Bees and ants, and they all have these specialized jobs, right? There's nursery ants that nursery bees that help direct the development of the pupas, whether they're going to be this caste or that caste, whether they're going to be an air conditioner or not. But there's roles. And they call them nanny bees, nurse bees, and the workers have different castes. Depending on the species, you'll have things like soldiers and stuff as well. But the honeypot ant is what I always think of as the funniest one. They have a whole caste system. This job is to be a water bottle, like to be filled up with liquid, like honeydew, basically filled up with honeydew, and they just hang out, and that's all they do. Hang out with their butts all swelled up. Hold on, let me see if I'm going to get a good picture of them. They did the I'll find that one. It's so funny. They made the meme out of it where they fed them let me see. There you go. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Gotta not full screen this guy or I won't be able to drop it. There you go. This one. These are honeypot ants. They can fill that up a lot, but yeah, if you color it, you can make them rainbow colored. Fire ants are being laced with homosexual chemtrails to bite Christians and convert them to homosexuality. That's quite the unique cast.
That's the worker bees, and they do everything that needs to be done to keep that whole industrious hive humming. And then, of course, the last one is the drone bees. Now, the drone bees are males, and the males simply help to reproduction for the female, and that's all they do. And so there's only several hundred drones, and then the one queen bee, and then, of course...
Yeah, in most hymenopterans, the males just hang out and eat. That's all that's how they contribute. They hang out and eat and provide sperm. The females do everything else. And the way they reproduce, all the males don't have a father, right? Haplodiploidy is the reproduction process which hymenopterans use. So if a female queen goes on her nuptial flight but doesn't mate with a male before she does, she will have all male offspring that will be useless because all they'll want to do is hang out and eat. She has to mate so she can have female offspring so she can start a new colony or new hive. And that's bees, ants, wasps, all of them.
60 to 70,000 of the worker bees.
Wow.
But it's very, very efficient the way God has designed the hive to operate.
Wow. So a question that I have is, how is that queen bee selected? There's not a voting process in place, surely. Is it just they pick one at random, or?
Yeah, it's hard to say how they choose one pupa to become the queen, but it does, and then they put all of their efforts into feeding that one pupal stage, the royal jelly, and giving them just the queen bee the ability to grow and mature into the queen.
That's fascinating. Kind of makes you want to think, although I don't actually want to be in a beehive, it kind of makes you want to see what's going on the inside there.
I'd want to be in a beehive. I want to load up on royal jelly. Make me the queen. It'd be cool if you could eat royal jelly and I could be like the 50-foot woman.
All right. Well, so we've talked about, the honey aspect of things a bit. What is the bees' role in pollination? I know they're not the only pollinators, and you hear from pop culture, of course, that like bee populations are failing, and if they fail, then we won't be able to pollinate anything. What is the bees' role in pollination? How important are they to that side of things?
Well, it's been said by zoologists and entomologists out there that a full 2/3 of the crops, at least here in the continental United States, need the bee as a pollinator.
Wow.
And so that translates into things like almonds and broccoli and pumpkins, apples, and then non-food.
That's all stuff that honeybees can pollinate, but there's a lot of things that native bees pollinate too, so we got to keep that in mind, that are part of our ecosystem. And having everything collapse down to being only things that honeybees can pollinate is not gonna, it's what they call a monoculture, and it's not good. Not good for the ecology, not good for species diversity or the health of the region as a whole.
Crops, such as the cotton crop. And so bumblebees are very important, for example, in pollinating alfalfa. And so all of these crops are needed with the bee in mind. So the bee is what helps to pollinate these crops. It's frightening to think if all the bees were killed off, if all the bees disappeared, what would happen to the food foundation of the United States? Now, back about 20 years, there was an apocalyptic prediction that the bee population was so declining that pretty soon we wouldn't have any bees. Now, thankfully, that didn't occur. And as a matter of fact, within the last couple of years, they're seeing a rebound.
Okay, so that's a misinformation there, sort of, because the bees that we needed to worry about were never the honeybees. So when you think about I beat this drum all the time. When you think about the Save the Bees campaign, do not think about European honeybees, because that's like if someone was saying save the birds, right? And they had a picture of a chicken, like a domestic chicken from a farm. No. Or, yeah, save the wildlife and talking about free range cattle or something. European honeybees are domestic livestock, right? If you see a European honeybee on your property, that's either somebody's domestic livestock free ranging on your property, or a feral descendant from a free range domestic livestock on your property. One or the other. That's what you're dealing with. They don't belong here. They're not part of the ecosystem. They are just the same as like a cat being in your garden. They're an invasive species that doesn't belong there. When you say save the bees, what we need to focus on is the native bees. They're the ones that are actually part of this balanced natural ecosystem. To have European honeybees, so don't get me wrong there. But if you're in North America, it's not, and they're detrimental. Again, we're talking monoculture, where we're going to see a decline in local flora in response to the decline in the local pollinators. So it's a chain effect. It's a domino effect
of the bee population.
That's good.
Now, what caused the bees to decline to such an extent in the first place about a couple of decades ago? They're not sure. They think it might have been what I mentioned, those mites or a viral infection, pesticides, parasites, things such as that. They're not sure. But thankfully, we can thank the Lord that the bee population is coming back from the brink.
Okay, that's awesome.
The domestic honeybee population, the livestock population is rebounding. The wild population is still in dire straits, y'all. And that goes not just for bee pollinators, but all wild pollinators are in huge, vast decline, like 80% loss in some areas. So while our livestock and the agriculture industry is doing a-okay with their honey production, the rest of the globe is kind of losing their insect biomass, and in response some flora as well.
Awesome. I had not heard that. That's very encouraging. So let's go back to honey a little bit. I know that not all bees make honey. What purpose do other bees serve other than making honey and pollinating? Are there bees that don't do either of those things that just
It's
exist?
funny because if you have a biblical worldview, everything has to have a purpose, right? It has to have a reason that God made it. You didn't just find a niche to carve out existence. So, Bree, can you explain why Manuka honey burns so good? It's delicious, but it's got a kind of horseradish style sting going on. I don't know what that is. Manuka honey. I've never heard of that. Enlighten me. So until biblical scholars reach a consensus, it looks like Kraken is back on the menu. Carpenter bees pollinize my plants just fine. I like this channel. It's fun. I like that you like this channel and it's fun. I just don't want you to derail the side chat with talk about apes when we're talking about bees. That's all. I appreciate you being here and that you're willing to listen to what I have to say about evolution. So appreciate that. It's fun. Maybe stop doing bannable shit. Yeah, I don't know if things have gotten taken down. If you said things that are moderation worthy, I trust Maya and Titan to handle that. I think that they are going to be keeping the hive's best interest in mind. No, I don't know Manuka honey. It's new to me.
And live their lives?
Right. So a very small minority of honeybees actually live in the hive, as we just covered.
Right.
And 70% of the 25,000 species of bees live underground.
Wow.
And so a number of them, a vast majority, are native bees that are solitary and don't form hives. And so those bees we don't really think about because they're just part of the...
Okay. I've got you now. Okay. Manuka honey is a monofloral honey that comes from nectar of the Leptospermum scoparium. or manuka tree, which is native to New Zealand and some parts of Australia. Bees produce the honey by pollinating the tree's flowers. Manuka honey has a strong, earthy flavor and golden color and thick texture. I wasn't familiar with that. Leptospermum scoparium. Let me see what this is all about. Does this plant have medicinal properties? Ooh, it's a pretty tree. It's got little pink flowers on it. Let me bring it over so you guys can see. No sense in just looking at it by myself when I have a whole hive to hang out with. So here's what the flowers look like. Pretty. They're quite beautiful. Talking about the honey here and the pollinators. Has some use. Parasites and parakeets. Alright, Manuka honey. Uses a sugar substitute. I might try some. Sounds interesting. It's produced by European honeybees, though, not anything native. Okay, it grows uncultivated through both southeastern Australia and New Zealand. It's viscous. Okay, yeah, I'll try it, Jeff. Sounds good. Thank you for telling me about it.
Ecosystem. And so when it comes to honey, honey is an amazing, amazing compound. It's a sugar compound, and it's very nutritious. And get this, they have found honey buried with Egyptian mummy that was still fresh.
Wow.
And I don't know how true that is, but I think it is because...
Yeah, we've been domesticating honeybees longer than the Earth's been around, according to ICR. So we have to keep that in mind, right? We have to keep the notion that they think that the Earth is 6,000 years old and that we've had domesticated bees at least since 4,500 BCE. So, yeah, at least a couple hundred years longer than the Earth's been around.
There's really nothing you can do to corrupt honey. Just keep it enclosed,
Right.
and it can last for a long, long time. And we have this evidence from Egyptian mummies.
So it has no expiration date. So you
That's
can leave
it.
it in your pantry as long.
It crystallizes. You can melt it back down though. It'll crystallize. I've had it crystallize in my pantry before, quite a few times actually. Especially if it's cheap, like poor quality honey, it'll crystallize because they put a lot of preservatives that start to get waxy when they age.
As long as you want, it'll still be good.
Yeah, and it'll granulate into sugar, but then you just heat it, and it's no problem.
Okay, wow. All right, so these 70% of underground bee populations, what purpose could there possibly be for them under the ground? What purpose are they serving?
That was a good one. What purpose could there be? I like that. That was good
Yeah,
stuff.
so those bees are just part of the vast ecosystem, the foundation, and a lot of insects are the foundation of the food complex that we have here. And so they are part of the ecosystem, and they do what they're designed to do by the creator, and that's about all that we know.
That's about it. So there's like these noble honeybees and these pollinators, and then there's just these,
Yeah,
these
this other 70%.
the majority who aren't really producing a visible thing that we can see and buy on a grocery store shelf. Yeah. All right, well, I have heard...
that is true, blessed be. There's medical grade honey specifically for that too. I didn't know if you knew that or not. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe this is true. Maybe this isn't true. I remember it from my elementary school days about this complicated like bee dance. Maybe I'm crazy. Have you heard any of this? Is there validity to this?
You're like a little hummingbird, aren't you, Samami? You're like you get your sugar content so that your little fluttery little heart can get going and you can flutter around your apartment with your place with your kitty cats.
Concept of like bees communicating with dance.
It is utterly, utterly amazing. As a matter of fact, one evolutionist said just 2 years ago, among the most sophisticated and complex of all non-human communication systems is the dance of the honeybee.
Okay.
And there are several dances the honeybee does to communicate with the rest of the workers in the hive. If a forager, and they call them forager bees, are out there and they find a group of flowers that are very, very nutritious and are needed because of the honey and the pollen, then they have to fly back to the hive. Now, that group of flowers, for example, may be out somewhere around a quarter of a mile away or more.
Wow.
So one of the amazing things about these foraging bees and all bees in general that live in the hive is that they are able to go out a quarter mile, maybe even a half mile. Or
Jeff, wait a second. I think you're being too hard on ticks. Imagine this, okay? You go through the grass, you walk through the tall grass, and get ticks all over you, right? Your body's covered with ticks, right? and they're biting onto you, sucking your blood. Then you get to have a magical experience because you get to walk down to the water hole and walk about armpit deep in the water and and then all these little turtles that come out and they're going to get the ticks off you, and it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be like an experience of a lifetime, having all these little turtles nipping the ticks off of your body. It's going to feel so therapeutic and wonderful, and yeah. So how could that be a bad thing?
Or more, and find their way back. Now, navigation is incredibly important for that. How do the bees navigate to find their little hive from a quarter mile away? It's really amazing. But they go out there and they'll find some of these flowers and all, and if the food is nearby, the forager performs what is called a round dance. Well, the round dance of the bee is just what you would expect. She goes clockwise in a round dance, and while the rest of the hive watches her, and they watch her intently. While they're watching her do the round dance in a clockwise progression, then she turns around and does a counterclockwise progression. And she does this time after time again. So what is she telling the rest of the bees who are watching her? She's saying basically that pollen and nectar are nearby. Wow. So that's the round dance. However, there's another dance that the bee does that is called the wag.
But you get to have the turtle experience, Jefferson. I know you like turtles. I've heard you talk about turtles before. I remember what you were saying, something about when crossing the road, I think, but it's been a long time ago. Anyway, you get to have the turtle experience. Isn't that worth the ticks? The ticks bring the turtles to you.
Waggle dance. Now, the waggle dance is more sophisticated, more detailed, and I really can't explain it sitting here, except to say that one part of the waggle dance has the bee going in a straight line. Now, if she does the waggle dance, moving her body, kind of wiggling it a short distance there in the hive, that means that the flowers, the flower patch or whatever, is a short distance away. Conversely, if she does the waggle dance for an extended period or extended portion of the hive, that means that the flower patch is far away. Wow. And so that's all part and parcel of what they call the waggle dance. And the forager...
Well, Jeff, I would show you a video of turtles doing just that, but I got a copyright strike for it. Yeah. Because I said, hey, look at these turtles eating this. Yeah, I'm annoyed by that. I'll keep griping about it. It was, yeah. But I can do the waggle dance. You want to see the waggle dance? I'll do that.
Has to do it precisely so that the other bees know what's happening. Now, more entomologists are finding out that this waggle dance is more sophisticated than they realized because a portion of the waggle dance is they think perhaps is telling the bees who are watching the quality of the flower patch.
Well, in my opinion, they should have picked a better name than the waggle dance. That sounds like something from the 70s, I'm going to be honest. But that is fascinating. The fact that these insects can communicate like that, I mean, probably communicate better than humans do, right?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, one researcher said a few years ago, and I quote, "These are highly intelligent creatures," end quote. And in 2005, biologists were stunned to...
But they're intelligent as a group, though. They have a group of mind where they don't have to do all the thinking about any specific thing because each individual caste does its own thinking about specific things. So it really does divide them up to take care of each other and exist as a cohesive, almost like a single organism unit. It's called eusocialism. A lot of the population doesn't have anything to do with reproduction or anything. Some of them don't even have reproductive organs. A bee's stinger, an ant stinger, a wasp stinger, those are a worker's modified vagina, right? That's their ovipositor that has calcified, or it's not calcified, it's chitin, but yeah, it's turned into because they don't have a reproductive system. They don't need one. They're not a reproductive part of the society. They're a warrior part of the society. Their vagina turned into a weapon that they can use on invaders. So they're not even part of the so their brain, they don't have to think about any of that stuff when it comes to reproduction or finding a mate like the queen does, and she's got her own wiring, or the male does, he's got his own wiring, or the nursery bees do, they got their own wiring too. There's different jobs for different members of the society.
To realize that bees can recognize human faces. That wasn't figured out until the 21st century. And in 2017, Science magazine wrote of, and this is the phrase they used, and I wanted to share this with our viewers, unprecedented cognitive flexibility of bees.
Wow.
Unprecedented cognitive, that is thinking, flexibility of the bees. That was said in 2017. A zoologist said bumblebees can not just copy others, but they can actually improve upon what they're learning. Now, you mentioned about people learning and all that. Well, to improve upon what you're learning, that's almost what you would attribute to people, not the lowly bees. So speaking of bee intelligence,
Why are bees lowly? Bees are not lowly. Bees are fantastic. When it comes to insects, bees are top notch. I mean, yeah, like cream of the crop.
have realized that bees are so intelligent, but with a very small brain. The brain of a bee, and they've dissected it out, is about the size of a grass seed.
Wow.
Now, a grass seed is just a little bit of nothing, and so a bee having the size of a brain the size of a grass seed, that translates to about only 1 million neurons. Now, 1 million neurons is not very much. So how is it that bees can recognize human faces, have this unprecedented cognitive flexibility, improve upon what they're learning with a brain that only has 1 million neurons? Well, more researchers began to do work.
Each individual doesn't have to do all the other stuff. They just have to focus on their one job. Their brains are firing neurons to tell them to go collect pollen and bring it back, or go collect nectar and bring it back. And the pollen's just a byproduct, but yeah, go collect pollen or nectar and bring it back. And then the queen's job is, her brain's wired to say, "Hey, go up and do your nuptial flight." And they all have their own distinct set of objectives, I guess would be the way to describe it, that they do. So they don't have to do complex thinking alone.
In the field of entomology and bees in specifically, and they realized that it's not so much the number of nerve cells, but how the nerve cells are wired together. And the way that they're wired together is incredibly sophisticated and detailed. And so don't just think of, well, bigger brains mean you're smarter.
Right.
No, there's nothing really to that. It's how they're wired, how they're put together. Now, this flies in the face of evolutionary naturalism that says that evolution is just a random process, natural selection, whatever that is, random mutation, genetic mistakes. None of that points to the creative design of the bee, particularly when it comes to the wiring of the brain.
Wiring is something that requires engineering and intelligence.
Exactly. Yeah, nothing is left to chance when that bee brain was put together, and it wasn't put together by time and chance.
But we have bees everywhere, everything from like solitary bees that live alone to honeybees being like the most complex eusocial bees that we have. But we have the whole spectrum of wasps and bees that cover their solitary lifestyle all the way to the ones with literally dozens of different caste systems, including a species of ant that has a caste that, I kid you not, its job is just that it's a door. It's a door that blocks the hole. That's all his head is shaped like the hole, and he blocks the hole with his head. That's his job. That's his caste. That's all he does for the bee society. I'm not even kidding. So it's complex, but there's so much variety that to say that it can't evolve when we see that it's gone so many different directions is kind of silly.
And natural processes.
Wow, that is fascinating. That's a very small brain. I can't imagine. So you said that evolution can't really explain this kind of thing. Do they at least try? What do they say about it?
Well, basically, they talk about complementary evolution or co-evolution. And that sounds like a neat phrase, except it's empty. It doesn't mean anything. Basically, and I'm not denigrating the evolutionists, but I just want to make it specific and very, very clear that co-evolution, complementary evolution, is not a scientific explanation. So to say that bees and flowers, the angiosperms, evolve together and they call it co-evolution, well, that's not an explanation. That doesn't tell me the origin of the angiosperms, the flowering plants. It doesn't tell me the origin of bees.
Well, I mean, the idea that bees see in this ultraviolet spectrum, which allows them to see colors that we can't, and that the flowers bloom in those spectrums of light to attract the bees and direct them towards the nectar and towards the pollen. The coevolution we see, historically speaking, the development of flowers themselves as a landing pad for bees and other pollinators who also see in the ultraviolet spectrum, like birds and butterflies, to know where to find the sweet stuff. It's just the same way as fruit evolved, like trees evolved fruit that turn red when they're ready to eat, so that because primates like you and me can see the red spectrum, stealing out from the green and grab that fruit and eat it. Get the seeds in our tummy and then go, walk 5 miles away and take a load off and plant a new tree somewhere far away. That's why fruit is red and can be really seen really well by the color spectrum that we have as ex-frugivores, and we've evolved from fruit-eating animals. So that's red against green. That's why we use red in our stoplights. Because red against green is catches your attention. Now, the evolution of flowers alongside bees, and again, more pollinators than that. We have butterflies and birds, again, that see in that same spectrum of light. And there's nocturnal pollinators, too. And if you look at the nocturnal blooming flowers, they'll tend to be white, which in the moonlight, when you see in the ultraviolet spectrum, glows like purple. So, or some of them go green. I think the green ones have a little more yellow, like moonflowers that are pollinated by nocturnal insects. And some flowers bloom during the day and then close up at night and open back up during the day. So there's a lot of factors that come into play to attract a specific type of pollinator. Some have specific shaped flowers to get down to the nectar that only a specific bird's beak or butterfly's proboscis can fit down.
Just says that bees and flowers are together. And we as creationists would say, absolutely, bees and flowers are together because flowers need the bees and bees need the flowers.
It's that entire system involves an irreducible complexity there. You can't have the bees without the flowers, and you can't have the flowers without the bees, or both systems would fall.
You do have actually both without each other in the fossil record. There were flowers before there were bees that were less complex and didn't have the same qualities that attracted different Mesozoic pollinators. Bees are new on the scene, or they came around in relatively recently. But we've had different animal pollinators since the Paleozoic that carried pollen for a host plant, and host plants that produced sweet stuff to attract pollinators since the Paleozoic too. Even if they didn't have flowers, the producing sweet nectar to attract pollinators predates flowers. There are plants today that produce a sweet nectar that don't have flowers. They do have buds that they get pollinated with no flower because the animals that they attract to pollinate are smell-based. So a lot of different factors come into play.
That's correct. And according to the fossil record, bees have always been bees. Evolutionists want to say that bees evolved from a wasp-like creature, but we know that bees, and to get a bee fossil was really difficult because they don't have the bones that we attribute to like fish or dinosaurs. But we found enough insects in the fossil record that we can say without hesitation, insects, in this case bees, have always been bees.
Wow. Well, that's
well. We actually have the evolution of hymenopterans is well documented in the fossil record because we have all the amber. So we have them from, basically a more basal wasp-like bee all the way up to modern fluffy bumblebees. We have the whole record documented, and it's not disputable.
Do you have any other interesting facts about bees that you want to share with us?
There's another thing about bees which is absolutely incredible, and that is, when you look at the eye of a bee, you find these various facets, dozens and dozens, hundreds of these facets. Each one of these facets is called an ommatidia. Ommatidia is a functional part of the entire eye of the bee. Now, God designed the ommatidia to see in the ultraviolet light.
Wow.
Now, we as people cannot see in the ultraviolet light.
That's what I was just saying.
And there are structures, there are parts of flowers that we were just talking about that have something called nectar guides, special structures that we cannot see as we enjoy the aesthetic value of flowers and enjoy their smell and all that. Bees are not interested in that. They're interested in what they can see in the ultraviolet range, these structures I just mentioned, within the petals of the flower. Wow. That's called nectar guides. These nectar guides do simply that. They guide and direct the bee to the nectar. And
we see that they co-evolve with the bees. As the bees develop the eyes to see the ultraviolet, the flowers develop the petals to show the ultraviolet. Co-evolution.
You can see that in the ultraviolet range, and the shapes and the lines of the nectar guides are very, very specific and help the bees to achieve their purpose and their function.
Wow. It's not even just like the brain, it's the eyes, the flowers having all of the, I've never even heard of nectar guides, and you need all these very specific, minute things to work together from the beginning, otherwise it just doesn't work at all.
Exactly. So, like you say, it's an irreducible complexity. We look at the individual bee, we can see its ability to see in the ultraviolet range.
Irreducible complexity. He's coming up. We're going to get a Michael Behe. We got a Blessed Behe and a Michael Behe, and talking about the bees.
They can recognize human faces. They even know the concept of zero, and they know that numbers can be applied to special units and structures. So we're finding out more and more about the bee, and we can see that it is complex from the very beginning.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Sherwin. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners. You can find this podcast on YouTube or wherever else you find podcasts. And I've been Trey, and this has been the Creation Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Trey. I enjoyed correcting your bad science on this video. All right, so that was ICR doing some bad bee evolution stuff. I guess. So, yeah, thank you for joining me for some sci-fails. It's been a while since we've explored the realm of young Earth creationism, so I thought I'd give it a little, another once-over. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Together for some neck.